Hello everyone. We are here for an interactive session for knowing our knowledge about our structural engineering field. As we all know that the civil engineers play a crucial role in shaping and transforming developing countries, and we are seeing an upward trend in demanding for innovative professionals. And with rapidly growing world population, it is evident that the infrastructure must sustainably meet the demands of this growth. This will provide a multitude of new prospects for those working in construction, including structure, mechanical, and civil engineers to use innovations. As a student, we have many questions in our minds. Who better than an experienced industry expert can help us to answer them? Today, we have this wonderful opportunity to interact with Sudip Choudhary, who is the Senior Manager of Structural Technical Department at Bentley Systems. With over 24 years of experience in structural engineering field, he has a record of achievement in helping organizations to be successful and innovative with STAAD.Pro and other Bentley structural products. He is also the founder of very vibrant and interactive YouTube channel for students called as Structure Insider. So welcome Sudeep and thank you all for to interact and learn from today. From here, introducing myself, my name is Pragya Sharma and pursuing MTech in structural engineering from National Institute of Technology, Raipur. I am also joined by here my fellow college mates, Vikash, Gupta, and Rajiv Ranjan, who are pursuing B.Tech in civil engineering from National Institute of Raipur Technology. Sudip, we are here to excited to hear from you today. So you can start with an overview and share about the structural engineering professions and industry.
Right. Thank you, Pragya. Thank you for such a nice introduction. Um, it is a real pleasure, and I have always enjoyed interacting with students. As a part of the Bentley's academic program, I have also lectured in STAAD.Pro around many institutes of India. Of course, I haven't been to NIT Raipur. However, maybe sometime in the future. And I had a chance of interacting with so many students there, um, and sort of through, as you have mentioned, my YouTube channel as well. Through that YouTube channel, many reaches out to me. Many students reach out to me in LinkedIn asking for career guidance in structural engineering, which they prefer to keep it personal. So I sometimes calls them as well, or do that in a chat. And of course, the perspective that you have given about how the industry is evolving and stuffs like that. These are the things that are sort of common questions among all the students. So since I'm given only 10 to 15 minutes, I think there are a lot of grounds to cover. In that sense, I won't be able to talk on everything, because this is really a vast subject which can get me going around 1.5 hours without any problem. But I'll just give you in brief as to see one of the things in the recent years. I had been mostly been responsible for the whole India region, because I had been looking after the structural team in India. And we had been responsible in this mostly in the SAARC countries and also in the Middle East. So that has been my area of responsibility, but mostly India. So I'd be able to give you the perspective of the opportunities that exist in India at this point. It's good to see students being concerned about this now, because at our time I thought that we didn't have that much of an outlook at this point. Of course, the communication was not so good then, and only if we had this interest, then we might have been able to do a lot better than what we have. But yeah, there are a few things that I would like to talk to you about. So as you know, around 2020 April, COVID had struck our country, which sort of slowed down the pace of everything. The economy had severely suffered, and with economy is something that's the base on which everything depends on. And this has made such changes to our our lifestyle. For example, I'm still sitting at home. You can see a bit messy surroundings because this is my workspace, and where I work from. And I do not need to always go to the office because I have access to a laptop. I have internet, a good running internet at home, so I'm able to work from home comfortably. But this doesn't go for everyone in the country. In various professions, people have to move over. But you would see that the demand of the traffic movement in the past have, at to some extent, had come down than what was there in the past. So these are the things that shapes the infrastructure. Now, all these new challenges has areas where it's like a river where if one side of the river, the banks are broken down, the other side, the river would leave that space. So if something is destroyed, something would grow also. So, and this has exactly happened with something like a COVID um, situation that we had. A lot of areas people have suffered in, but there has been a built up of a lot of new areas as well. So what does it sort of means for us as structural engineers is what I would like to point out a couple of important areas that where the infrastructure is sort of being developed now, right? Or where we are seeing a lot of infrastructure traction. One of those areas is the road infrastructure, and we are so with our next Lok Sabha elections, I think it's around 2024. So this current government, I think, has projections up to 2024, and in the next 2 years, this government has a target of building 60,000 kilometers of highways. So you can understand how extensive that is, right? And we already have 140,000 kilometers of highways that has been built. Now, 60,000 kilometers of highway to be built in the next 2 years means a lot of opportunity for structural engineers. Also, although the structural engineering aspects of when you build a road, I think that's not a big percentage, but still you get a lot of opportunities for building the various structural components that are related to road infrastructure, like, say, for example, bridges, culverts, retaining walls, right? So if the road has to cross a river, then you build a bridge. I think we recently had inaugurated a bridge in Bihar. I think that's called the Mahatma Gandhi Setu, right? And that was for the highway passing through. So like that, the bridges, and then you have to build all these box culverts and other sort of culverts, and also retaining walls if you are going through areas which has a lot of backfill. So these are the opportunities that you will have in the next 2 years with 60,000 of kilometers of new roads that are proposed to be built. With 140,000 kilometers of highway that is already built, we have opportunities for engineers in health monitoring of structural systems, right? Like especially the bridges, you need to do the health monitoring, a constant eye on the bridge and other structural components. And there are some advanced technologies that would let you monitor even the most inaccessible areas with the technologies. Now we have the drone technology, and which would help you survey even the very inaccessible areas, and we have technologies that generates from the pictures that the drones take, into real advanced reality meshes, and then there are these sensors that you can really put in the bridges and get a feedback on the stress parameters of the bridge, right? So the health monitoring is another important, or rather quite a vibrant aspect of this, or a new avenue of structural engineers, I would say. Even in other than structural engineering, the areas in this infrastructure component is that you also have opportunities for other civil engineers, like to be in the roles like roads or highway engineers, right? You have a transportation engineering subject in your course in B.Tech, and then you can be surveyors using advanced survey technologies and computer softwares. You can be geotechnical engineers. So I think there are immense potential in the road infrastructure, where and in addition to learning structural engineering, which you need to learn very well, I think the other thing is that you have to focus on getting as much as knowledge on what's happening around, and all this advanced technology stuff, right? That you can work with. So that was the first aspect that I wanted to talk to you about. So any questions in between? I just want to keep this a bit interactive, so just that not one-way traffic. But do you have any questions on this, or nothing? Okay, so then let us then look into our next uh, uh, region, or the next infrastructure area that is coming up very rapidly, and that is the area of alternative or green energy infrastructure. I'm sure that you have heard about how the world is looking to do away with, because most of our energy till this date is coming from fossil fuels, right? So whatever we are, the fuel that the fuel that comes from the fossil-based sources. So in those cases, this fossil-based fuels actually has a very derogatory influence on the climate and the atmosphere, and this has led to the global warming problem, right? And we had been losing. And the impact has been tremendous, right? Around the world, you could see that, the ice caps, the glaciers melting away, and the polar bears, for example, in the what do you call those? Polar regions, they are losing their habitat, because the snows are being the snow is being melted, and what's the result of that is the sea levels is increasing, so which actually might result in losing our lands as well to the sea. So there are a lot of effects. Other than that, we do have the suspended particles in the atmosphere, which is creating a lot of diseases and really degrading the quality of lives of people, right? So but then on the other hand of it, the demand of energy is constantly rising, right, with the advancement of technology, and we are seeing an increase in energy consumption with every passing years, and this has even been more with the strike of the COVID period, because a lot of people were working from home, a lot of people hooked onto TVs, and you'd see where we would have access to all those film-based websites, Netflix, and you have this what do you call the Amazon Prime or something, right? So a lot of electricity based, the demand for energy both for day-to-day lives and for recreation is increasing. So how are we to meet that energy demand, right? So and we do not want to use the fossil fuels for that, because that, as I have said, creates degrading impact on the atmosphere. So we recently had a COP26. Have you heard about COP26 conference that was held in Glasgow? So one of my advices to you is to keep an eye open for all these events that are going around, because this would automatically build a sense in you, in students. I mean, not only among who of you are listening to me right now, but for anyone who would be accessing this recording in the future. It's meant for every one of them. You can try and keep yourself updated. Of course, you have your subject to study, and you have to sort of be very meticulous with that part. But try and devote a part of your recreational time to get or keep yourself informed with what's happening around. So COP26 is actually the 26th conference of parties, where we have a lot of countries which had participated, and it's a UN the frame structure of discussing the climate issues. And in there, our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, had announced a net zero emission target by 2070. You understand what's a net zero target is? Net zero means that we'll have no emissions from fuel-based sources into the atmosphere. That is, 100% of our energy requirements will be met by the green energy or the alternative energy. So, and this is being backed by a very ambitious near-term goals. So India actually has set a target of augmenting the renewable energy electricity capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030, and also meeting 50% of energy requirements from the renewable energy. So you understand how big it is. It's a big country. It's a huge energy requirement, and we are standing at 2022. So we are 8 years away from the target, and we have even probably not reached 10% of our energy demand is being met by the renewable energies, right? It's still a very fuel dominant, the fossil fuel dominant energy system that we still have. And it's so around most of the countries. So if we are to achieve this target of having 50% of our energy reliance on the greener avenues, then that would mean that we would need to develop a huge amount of infrastructure there. And that infrastructure we are seeing is coming up, right? But we do not have enough professionals in the structural engineering who are sort of knowledgeable in that area. It's still a very fresh area, and you do not have codal specifications as such, in these areas. So you really have to build. Now this area is being developed. So this is one area that you can focus on. What are those various components in this renewable energy that are coming up? One is the rooftop solar system that we are talking of, right? You'll have the solar panels on the top of the roof of the structures. That's one. But that, how much of energy can it produce? Then we are also talking about converting the wastelands into areas where we can install the ground mounted solar systems, right? And apart from that, we are also trying to use the water bodies, the lakes and the upstream side of dams to actually install floating systems of solar panels, which would be developing this green energy, from the solar energy. India is a country because it's sort of located in the equatorial belt, and thus it has a lot of access to natural sunlight. It's, countries which are in, at higher latitudes don't have access to such privilege. So we can indeed look to convert a lot of our solar energy into that. And it's also being argued that a most efficient solar system is being the the one that is floating, we could, if we could use the water bodies, because what happens is, with the sun, with the evaporation of the water vapors, this also creates a component of the global warming. So what it does is, if you install the solar panels, it will prevent those evaporations to happen. And also it would not use lands which could be used for other purposes, like if you do not have an option of a wasteland, so you can always use those water bodies. So one of a big project has come up in Ramagudam. I think that's in Andhra Pradesh, by NTPC, and that's a 100 megawatt, I guess, project, which is based on floating solars. Now, one of the things here is that people do not have an idea, and I have been talking to engineers around. People do not have a proper idea as to how you could have a floating solar. How do you analyze those systems? Because no codes have been built up as yet. It's just such a new area, right? And this is going to be one of the primary focus of this decade, where the floating solars would gain such a lot of interest. Countries like Singapore have these floating solars installed in the seas, because Singapore is it's just a city, right? So then they are having this installed in the seas. So then you have these waves, you have your structures, and this structure is it's, instead of land, it's based on floating water, so it's floating, so there could be waves, winds could create waves, so your structure should be robust enough to sustain those the waves, right? So these are the things that you need to study. You need to probably have an idea of the wave mechanics as well. And apart from that, we are also talking of offshore wind. India, our ministry has actually created a body called NIWE. Have you heard about that? National Institute of Wind Engineers, which is in Chennai, and they are doing the primary work on what could be. It's still being surveyed, the potential, but it has been said that the coasts around Maharashtra, the coast from Maharashtra and from Tamil Nadu are very high source where they could capture the winds to convert that to energy. So then a new and it's happening around the world, like tapping the offshore wind. So you are installing systems in the sea, and those big fans, in the sea. There are two ways of doing that. You can have it installed on a platform, right, where the sea depth is shallow, right? Even then it's very tall structures, so you can install that there, and you will have it will there will be this turbine which would be rotating and converting that to wind energy. In deeper seas, if you go there, then you have to have a floating system, right, with those the turbine there. So in India, there has been a survey that has already been done in Gujarat, in Gulf of Khambat, and I think the potential of this is good. So one of the ways that if you wish to specialize, you can specialize in the ocean engineering as a structural engineer, and that would give you a lot of opportunities in this particular field to work in this field, because the this line of it's already being preliminary studies are being now done, and we have not yet started the actual work. So by the time you graduate and you go out of the college, you would probably find that this has become one of the phenomenal areas. And if you come with some expertise on wave mechanics and with structural engineering, then this could be a very good opportunity for you all. Remember that there are onshore that is on the land wind turbines as well. But the offshore wind turbines are more efficient because they capture these winds in the open, so the intensity is more, right? So this is one area that you could look to specialize in. Okay. The last, I just wanted to give a small thing about, there is another important aspects where we are doing the water wastewater. This is another going to be another pivotal infrastructure area for this particular decade, right? Where we are trying to give access to potable water to everyone around the country. And this means two things: that you have to ensure that the sources of potable water, you have to purify them, and the other thing is that you have to ensure that the sources of potable water system is not what you call polluted, right? So then you have to have a robust water treatment system and also a sewage treatment system. And we are having a lot of water treatment plants and sewage treatment plants that are coming up every day, right? And every time, so I actually keep myself, this is not an advertisement, but this one is a very good book which can a journal actually, and you can read that online as well, even if you do not subscribe. Indian Infrastructure, and this gives a lot of so I have like Indian Infrastructure and Structural Dynamics both side by side. They are not two separate things. It's you have to get with your subject as well, and also with this Indian Infrastructure. So if I look at the Indian Infrastructure magazine, they give what are the various tenders that have come out and stuff like that. And even you will see inevitably in the section of urban infrastructure, there is a water treatment plant or a sewage treatment plant that would come up, right? So this is another important area where you could try specializing in, because this has a lot of specialized structures that are related to water wastewater. So I will stop at that and just open this to Q&A. But yes, go ahead. What questions you have for me?
So thank you, Sudip, for your this insightful talk. As per about from your discussion, I have one doubt. I have a question that you are talking about renewable energy, about green building. So I want to know a concept about the green building. What's about this green building we are talking in our field?
Okay, green building is something that, see, because I am myself is a structural engineer, I do not know that much in details, but green buildings is something that would utilize the natural energy system. Say, for example, you are in a office, right? And which is a large enough office, and you have to switch on the lights every time you go in there, right? So you have to switch on the lights to see properly. So that in that case is that you are probably spending a lot of energies there. But if you could use the natural sunlight to light up the building somehow, right? That would mean that you are actually doing a lesser consumption of the generated electricity, and you are using more of the natural resources to light up the building. On the other hand, you can think about like say anyone from you from Delhi, or have you seen the Red Fort in Delhi? So in the Red Fort in Delhi, so you know how Delhi, how hot it becomes, right? So there is a canal that goes through, or that connects through all the palace buildings. In the Red Fort, there is the palace where the emperor had lived, right? And that canal, actually they call it the Nehre Bisht or something. Okay, so what they used to do, they used to pump, because at that time during Shah Jahan's time, the Jamuna River used to be just behind the fort. So they used to draw water from that river, and they would drive that water through that canal. So that would automatically naturally cool the building. Okay, cool the floors, and so they didn't have electricity at that time. So this is a sort of, how can you can utilize the natural resources. So if you can actually have sufficient air ventilation in the building, then it would mean that the AC power, the power that we expend on running ACs to keep the building cool, that can be reduced, right? So the green buildings are nothing but buildings that utilizes more of this natural resources of energy, so that the energy consumption, the energy or the generated energy consumption becomes lesser.
Okay. Thank you so much for your this knowledge. So, as we are aware with that the technology, doing technology in our field, so how we can manage labor efficiency in this growing technology in our
See,
industry?
right. See, I am a structural engineer, so I won't know much about managing labor efficiencies. I won't be able to answer that question that much. But there are softwares that in Bentley we have Synchro. There is this, and I think as students you do have access to the Synchro software, which is a 4D viewing of the project, right? So of 3D means the space and fourth means the time, along with the time. So obviously that would include the labor management as well, in addition to the material management and how do you do things, right?
Okay, okay, sir. Um, Rajiv or Vikas, you can continue with your questions if you have any
Uh,
queries.
yes, I am myself Rajiv Ranjan. Sir, I have a doubt from your the what you have told that
Hmm.
you were telling that you will tap the water surfaces for the planting of solar cells. In this
Hmm.
way, we will reduce the evaporation rate. It may reduce the evaporation rate. Then this may cause the less rain in the land areas. Then it will make cause a scarcity of the water in the plain area. How
Okay,
can
no,
we tackle that?
no, that doesn't really happen because see, the water body, the rains that we receive are mostly from the sea, and it's generally set by the monsoon breezes that come from the sea. Now you are taking me to a, a very different zone than my own areas, but this would come under the realm of maybe environmental or someone who deals with this climate scientists. But generally the rains that we receive, the most of the rains would come from the breeze that would come from the sea. So that's why we have monsoon setups, because that's the time when the breeze comes from the ocean into the land laden with moisture, and it will dump it here, right? So inshore land doesn't have much of an effect on the rainfall pattern. So that needs not be worried about, I think.
Okay, sir. There is another problem that I have got that as the many countries are facing the situation of earthquake, and
Hmm.
I think that sir, there are mainly the when the earthquake comes, then there is a crack in the building. So, is there is
Hmm.
any software or any artificial intelligence like thing that will predict that where the cracks may occur due to the earthquake or any loading that we don't mainly design for that?
Right. No, I don't think there is anything that can predict earthquake cracks, because see, one of the things is that earthquakes themselves are so unpredictable. That's number one. And it's a random vibration problem. By the way, this is another good avenue that you can go in, because this is one of the most looked out problems for structural engineers, and dealing in, or especially where the structures are built in the seismically active zones, right, which are near the tectonic fissures and all. So, so we recently had an earthquake in Taiwan, which had caused much loss. So this is one area that you could expertise in, and an expert in this area is very much needed. There are a lot of people who are working on earthquake engineering. So for that, you would need to understand structural dynamics very properly, and also what type of structures that you need to build to resist the earthquake, so that it could cause minimum damage. So far, the there are solutions to problems, but which are might be quite costly for some some middle income group to afford that, right? Like maybe base isolation, or you are talking about installing a damper. So that's an area that you can focus on. That's an area of opportunity I just mentioned since you have asked this question. Now, coming to your direct question, I'm not aware of anything that can predict cracks from earthquakes. That I think would be difficult. But if you have a system of data, right, and if you have the earthquake signals, right, that had caused this crack. So if you have the data, say you have the crack data, right, and you also have the from the past earthquakes I'm talking. If you have the crack data as to what happened to a building, and you have the earthquake signal according to that, and you give it to a machine learning maybe source, right? It's a part of an artificial intelligence machine learning. So, and then you feed such models, as much of models you would put in there. What it would do is that it would try and learn, okay, for this signal such crack has happened. So that is something that I don't have much. I'm not an any expert in machine learning, but that's what I understood. So but you need to confirm this from the experts. But then once it is able to understand that, right, now for a new earthquake, you do not know how the signal is going to be. Now what you can do is so you have this response spectrum graph, right, from which you predict earthquakes. So you can convert the response spectrum graph into what you call as synthetic time histories. So synthetic time histories are nothing but artificial time histories, right? And these are randomly generated with a random number. These are randomly generated, but statistically it would be equivalent to the response spectrum. So if you can feed the various signals from the same response spectrum it being statistically the same, but you still have different range of synthetic time histories that you can generate from the response spectrum and feed in the system, and just try and find out from the machine learning as to how that might affect. Now, this is something that completely novel. I just thought about it now and told to you. I don't know if this is already happened or is happening around. I don't know. So, but yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Rajiv, it was a good question. Sir, if we talk about tech, I have one concept about that is recently going through like bacterial concrete or self-healing concrete. Like this concept is also going as a crack in a because in a concrete structure, crack occurs after some age of time. So I'm going through this also of bacterial concrete like self-healing concrete.
Yes. So you are working on that?
Yes, sir. I'm working on that. That's why I asked you.
Okay, but that I think that those cracks are more related to shrinkage cracks, right? Creep and shrinkage cracks rather than earthquake cracks. I don't know much about bacterial concrete. So as far as I know, the bacteria grows inside those cracks, right, to fill that up, right? And it's also gives some elastic properties there, right? Is that the
increment in the compressive strength and many moments. But it is like economically, it is not good. If we work for a small scale, wait, I'm going.
Right,
okay,
right. Okay, go ahead. If you could share some papers on that, Pragya, that would be good with me. I don't know much about it.
Yes, definitely. I will share the paper.
Sure. Okay, next question. Yes.
Hello, sir. I'm Vikash.
Yes, Vikash.
Sir, actually, I had a query that in recent times we are having a problem of flash flood or city floods in some areas, and that leads to the failure of the structures. So, can we manage these things using technologies?
Yes, I think this can be managed. Again, this is another region for me, but I think Bentley already has a technology. I think we have something called an open floods. Don't know. I have to. I don't know. Maybe open flow. or is it open flow? Anyways, as far as I know, there is a software that Bentley has that can handle the flood prediction, or it gives you an idea as to if a city is flooded, how it would fill up, and you know, that can give you an idea on you know, how the floods might affect a city. But I don't know much about that. I'm sorry, Vikas.
Okay, sir.
I also have a question that if we are there with the precast construction, but in India it is not readily available, like the precast construction technology. So can you give concept about it?
I think it might see in case of when we are building flyovers in the cities, I think it's mostly there where we use a lot of precast technologies, right? We have those precast girders which we place one after the other to create the flyovers, and we'll give the tendons in between to run that. But I think it might be more of a transportation infrastructure problem than anything else, that where the precast is not being used, and we are sort of still more in the region of in situ casting, okay, rather than precasting. So yeah, I think this would change with time, and as long as we have better roads, we and better accessibility to sites, I think then we could probably have more of precast technologies. But there are, so just opposite to my office, by the way, there is a steel building made of steel, which is very rare in India. It's mostly in concrete. So you know, and that has been built very fast. So it's just being bringing the sections from the from the factory and building it up, and it was built very fast. So so yeah, there are, and the flyovers is an example that I gave. So yeah, we do use precast technologies, but it's not readily available. That's also true. But I think this would change with time, as long as we start getting better accessibility, and people start to realize. And it's also sort of a psychology, right? It's also a psychology that people has as it changes with time. I think we'll have that as well.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I have a question related to the damping in concrete. That's that why we keep the damping in concrete a structure up to 5% only.
I think this comes more from the experimental results, Rajiv. So you know, based on material behavior, right? The how the material behaves. I think 5% is what they might have found out in most of the cases. Yeah, it's very difficult to tell from my from where I sit as to why it has been 5%. But we see that they give 2% for steel as well, right? So it's always yet a specific damping value has been set, but they won't give it to you without testing that properly. So you know, based on the various test specimens, I'm sure it's the test results that has come up here, right? Because not everything that you do in the course could have a mathematical proof, right? You have to it has to be a lot of things comes from the experimental data as well, as to experimentally how the material behaves, and based on that they found that the damping behavior of concrete is equivalent to a damping ratio of 5%.
Okay.
Sir, I had one more question. Sir, we had many pre-existing structures already built there. So the failures are sometimes due to the seismic failures are there. Is there any way to just control or that save that structure which is already built from seismic resistant to make that?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Sir, how can we make the existing building structures seismic resistance.
Oh, existing building structure seismic resistancy. If the existing building structure is concrete, then it's going to be a bit difficult. But in that, still you can do that by installing steel braces. For example, you could include dampers, right? Those increase the seismic resistance, because you have to understand. Firstly, it would be difficult to speak in general terms for generally for all the structures, because every structure has its own behavior. But then most of the things that you have to understand is what are the basic problems with this structure. Why do you want to make it seismic resistant, right? What is the issue? Now, if the structure vibrates as a unit, right, then the chances of seismic failure should be less. But if the structure starts vibrating at individually, right, and that's precisely the reason you have a you are asked about a strong column, weak beam, right? To ensure that the structure behaves in unity and there isn't a overall failure. So basically, then those are the things that you need to understand. But some general guidelines are, of course, you can, if it's a concrete structure, then you can, it's sort of difficult because you cannot break the structural components like columns or beams, right? Because it has been casted, it is carrying a load. Of course, like, yeah, putting in props to handle that for time being and stuff like that you can do. But if you do not want to sort of work in the beams or columns itself, but you want to put in some additional components there, then steel, I think, is one of the best ways to be doing that by installing steel bracings, or you can get in dampers, right? Or installing tuned mass dampers could help in, but you have to, these are all general suggestions, but you have to look at it from structure to structure. What does this structure has, as to why I need to retrofit this seismically. Once you understand that question, the answer would be available to you automatically. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Sir, I have a question that how important a role of a civil or a structure engineer in our today's building construction, particularly the role of our structure engineers?
Oh, that's huge. I mean, like, every time the ground shakes due to an earthquake, or a cyclone blows, right? You are the ones who are who is responsible of safeguarding the lives and properties of the public, right? So someone who safeguards public life and public properties, the importance of it, you cannot probably express that in words, right? So you are the very reason as to why people are safe during an earthquake, or in case of an catastrophe, in, say, cyclone, right? You are the reason. So your importance, I think it cannot just be expressed in words.
That was a great answer. Vikash and Rajiv, if you have further question, you can continue.
Sir, as you are in this field and we are going to join this field, so can you give us some tips and tricks that how can we upskill ourselves so that we can be good in this field after coming in this, joining this?
Tips and tricks. Okay, the first thing, of course, is that whatever you are doing, see, the world has all place for people who are best in in what they do, right? So the first effort while you are in college is that you need to listen to your professors very carefully, try and get a sense of the subjects very deeply, right? It sort of is difficult in an engineering college at times, because you have to go through such a lot of subject in such a short amount of time. But try that. And you try to learn, because remember, as I was telling in the questions before, that you would be if you are going to be a structural engineer, where people would rely on to safeguard their lives and properties. So you have a big responsibility, right? And so and with knowledge, you can meet that responsibility properly. The other preparation is, of course, have a deep knowledge in your subject. Firstly, that you have to be good as a person, number one. Number two, you need to have you need to be very good in what you do. These are the only two things.
Oh, it
Tips
was a
and
nice
tricks.
talk. It was a nice talk on basic principles of life that are just first priority as a person.
Correct.
So
Thank you.
thank you for knowledge about this also. Vikas and Rajiv, if you have further more questions, you can continue or we'll continue the session.
Sir, I have some few questions.
Yes.
Few more questions. Sir, I would like to know that what are the game-changing trends in the structural trends, and
Okay.
what are the new job opportunities that have come because of them?
Job opportunities I have told you about, like what are general, but when you are talking about new game changers, I would say artificial engineering, artificial intelligence, right? Those that what I think is going to be a big game changer in the future. And not that I have seen most of not many organizations who has started doing this, but there is an interest in trying to understand what the artificial intelligence can, how the artificial intelligence can help you in a project. For example, let me give you a quick example. So I was talking to one of the organizations. They build the pre-engineered buildings. Okay, so pre-engineered buildings would mean that they would have generally tapered eye sections, right? So one wide at this side, an eye section, and then it would taper like this, right? So what, and you cannot build that in the factory because the sizes vary. So those tapered sections are generally cut out from plates. So what is the exact size that they would need to put in? So they told me that they use STAAD.Pro. So they told me that they have to run 50 to 100 models, okay, to get the optimized structure size that that would give them the maximum efficient structure. But if we can do a machine design that can actually predict for them as to what is the sizes that they would need to start with, their effort would be reduced, right? 2 days work would be maybe brought down to maybe 1 hour work, right? So that is what is happening is that the world is moving at a tremendous pace, right? And people wants to finish as soon as possible so that they can go on to their next work, right? And in this way, the artificial intelligence can play a primary role. So one of the major decisions of a structural engineer is about like what sizes does he give? What should he give an X bracing? Should he give an A bracing? Should he give a K bracing? What is it that would work well, right? So if there is a system that could predict that for him, that this would give the most optimized structure, then that would be a huge time saving. And when you save time, you save money, right? Because you can actually focus on other work in that case. So basically, if you are talking about a game changer in structural engineering, I think it is basically the artificial engineering. Optioneering is going to be one major option, like for one, but that would come only if you use artificial engineering, because if you have a problem that you want to solve with a structure, then what you need to have multiple if you can generate multiple solutions to that same problem, right? And you try and find out which one is efficient. That is what. So these are the things where artificial intelligence can help. And I think that this is probably going to be the biggest game changer in the near future. And jobs opportunities, of course, like if you're a structural engineer and if you know a bit of computing and the principles of artificial intelligence, I think there would be new combined discipline or stream very soon, sometimes in the near future. But yeah, if you could actually learn Python at this point, and Python is very geared towards these problems of artificial intelligence, because you have a lot of this free libraries, right, that you can probably use there. So learning Python would be a good way to prepare for this type of market, along with structural engineering, as to how you can apply. But apart from that, I think things are changing in terms of monitoring, health monitoring, as I've said, because of these technologies like drone and all. You can take your fly your drone to areas where you'd be sort of inaccessible for a person to go and check, right? So you go there. I think we did a very recent project, search the Bentley website, and you would see there is a project of a dam, as to how the modern technology has been used to do the health monitoring of that, and using the sensor technologies to understand how things are behaving, right? Like bridges and all. And in fact, I was reading in this particular book where I think there is an interview of our minister who actually has been talking about such a system, like uses of network survey vehicles, ground penetration radars and all. So I think these are the things that are coming up, has not realized its potential fully and are just coming up. These would be the game changers in the near future, and you could understand that there would be job opportunities along with that.
Okay, so here Rajiv and Vikash, now it's clear, your queries are clear. Okay, so thank you, Sudip, for taking out time from your busy
Yeah, thank you.
schedule and facilitating us with your tales of your experiences and solving our queries in such a brilliant way. And also,
Thank
you
you.
made this event truly memorable by also giving us other knowledge, like from our basics of principle of our life, ethics. That was a grateful talk. And once again, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, ideas with us. So thank
Yes,
you,
sure.
Rajiv.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Vikas, for attending this session. And I'm very thankful to the Bentley Education for providing us this opportunity to interact with this experts to gain the knowledge from them. So thank you, Bentley Education, once again. And here we close this session. Thank you.